Check. All right, greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? Good to see everybody here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And every day we're live on Rockfin. Rockfinners, what's going on? See the people on the Rockfins and the Rockfin chat. We're live on Callin, and we're live on YouTube. Was there an earthquake? I didn't feel a thing. Was it, well, I guess I could find out. I didn't feel anything. I don't know. Just depends on where you are. Oh, it was Northern California. 5.5, not too big. Not a big quake. And yeah, looking like Northern California. All right. All right. But how you doing? Welcome. Greetings. Really good way to support the show is buymeacoffee.com/blackbearnews. It's on the screen. Cash App at Red Llama Music. That's 2 L's. That's on the screen. Also Venmo at Kevin Samblin. That's on the screen. And also, super chats are super great. And also super rays on Rockfin. Greatly appreciated. All right. Looks like there might be a flood event. Eurovision is on now? Oh, no. Could be a flood event in Texas. More than a foot of rain could create life-threatening flooding in Texas, meteorologists say. That in addition to the rounds of drenching rain, some thunderstorms could turn severe in Texas, with a deadly tornado already reported Saturday morning. Good Lord. Stay safe in Texas, people, or y'all. Somebody said, "Oh no, weather." Yeah. I find that to be one of the most insensitive responses to people, like dying in an extreme weather event. Somebody calling it weather. Oh my God, weather. I mean, yeah, people have died throughout history due to extreme weather, floods, whatever you want to. Floods, drought, heat waves, etc. But they're growing stronger and more prevalent. And that's a reality. And again, whenever we get that really crazy, wild, wacky, weather event where it's like 130 degrees or 140 degrees somewhere, then, come back and talk to me about the weather then. Let me know how that's going for you. since it's just weather. Next time you get flooded out of your home, I'll make sure to cruise on by wherever you're at and go, how's the weather? From Victory. This is Guatemala's coastline. It's like a bunch of just garbage. Plastic and garbage. Yay. This is really what we're doing to the world. It's just not generally in our backyards all the time. Yay. And there's more of that. They're going to make more. That's the thing about that. Somebody might come by and clean that up. But they're planning on making a whole lot more of that stuff, so that it can get worse. Let's see. Mega heat waves in India. From Peter Dines. Yes, emoji. And our bodies get to filter all of that plastic and whatnot for generations to come. True. Mega heat waves in parts of India, 45C being reached in many places. Once again, pushing the limits of habitat for many species. Plants and agriculture can only survive temperature spikes for a limited period. And also, there's a storm coming aboard pretty soon, right? Many towns and cities are experiencing intense heat. Adaptation measures are urgently required across this region and elsewhere. So all over this area of India, 40s, 43, 44, 45. Tim says it's like the Star Wars trash compactor scene, going back to the Guatemala picture. Can we brace global warming with a big pipe? I think we can. I think that's what we're going to do, right? We're going to get a big old pipe. And we're going to lock it in between the walls that are closing in. Just a quick reminder that 45C is 113 degrees. Imagine if it's, I don't know what the humidity is there. I'm sure it's probably extremely high in India. Imagine what that feels like. 113 degrees with like massive humidity. Hold on. 67%. It's pretty humid. I'm looking at New Delhi. New Delhi is 92 Fahrenheit. Forecast is 103. Humidity 47. They're way at the top of the continent or subcontinent. Ooh, and the whole week is 106, 106, 107, 105, 105, 105. Youch. Ooh, up to 46. Robin Westenra says it's May, and even when I was in India in 1988, unbearably hot. Rough. Okay. I was looking at this article that Denver sent me. Denver Attaway sent me an article about UVC reaching the Earth. Their theory is that it's reaching the Earth because the ozone layer is shredded because we're actually doing geoengineering. And the purpose of the geoengineering is twofold. To mask some heating and also to have a way to get rid of coal fly ash, which is a byproduct of coal burning. You know, they're basically saying the coal fly ash. It's just an interesting article saying geoengineering is, you know, it's been going on the whole time, right? Even while they're saying, oh, well, you know, we got to figure out how this geoengineering works so we can roll it out soon, right? Anyways, they're saying that they're since as far back as 2007, there were readings of UVC hitting the surface of the Earth, which is traditionally not supposed to happen. And they're saying this is happening because the ozone layer is completely shredded. It is not healing. And they're saying that the whole CFC argument for the ozone layer being shredded is false. Or not false. It's, you know, not the leading cause. They're saying the leading cause is the fact that they've been throwing this coal fly ash up into the air, doing the geoengineering. And this is causing the ozone layer to go away. Slowly but surely. And it has been going away. That, you know, the idea that it's healing is somewhat ridiculous. Anyways, it's a really interesting article. There are widespread assertions. Hold on. Let's just read this. Widespread assertions in the medical, public health, and geoscience literature that no UVC reaches the surface and only a portion of the UVB does. Figure 4. Where is figure 4? I think this is figure 3. Where's figure 4? This is figure 4. Sorry. Figure 4 shows our solar spectral irradiance measurements from figure 3, together with 2 solar irradiance spectra measured at latitudes 38 south and 38 north, as reported in 2002. As far back as 2002. Close inspection of the figure reveals that the 38 south green curve has higher resolution than 38 north pink curve, but more importantly, our red and black curves have even higher resolution than the 38 south green curve. Our higher resolution is particularly important when one notices the major difference in those curves. All of our UVB and all of our UVC measurements are non-zero, quite unlike the widespread and incorrect assumption. Non-zero meaning that there are measures some measurements of UVC. This is figure 3. This figure 4. Anyways, I mean, believe it or don't, read it or don't. CB Unglesby says irradiated radiation eats ozone. Sure. Darlene Parole says coal fly ash is so fine it's like liquid in a bowl. All right. Anyways, I just wanted to cover that a little bit. Believe it or don't, again. Oh, okay. So I want to go back to something I wanted to cover yesterday. And this is rather ridiculous. Societal cost of forever chemicals, about 17.5 trillion across the global economy. I mean, the number of 17.5 trillion is a ridiculously high number, but that's the cost of forever chemicals. The profits from these forever chemicals yield about $4 billion a year for the world's biggest PFAS manufacturers. Which is a tidy sum, right? $4 billion. If you're raking in $4 billion a year, you're doing pretty good. But the cost over just society. They're just saying societal costs. They're not even talking about, are they factoring in the, what are the, Earth, the, what is it called? Earth Services. What's the term I'm looking for? Where they monetize the biosphere and what it does for us. Delene Parole says there's so much coal fly being generated, they're mixing it with cement to make roads and construction. Yeah, apparently, in this article and elsewhere, people, it's a big problem. It's a huge waste product, and they need to get rid of it. Anyways. But the societal costs are 17.5 trillion, even though the profits are, $4 billion a year. That's pretty good. But, at what cost, right? Ecosystem services. Thank you. Going south. You got it. We have a winner. Ecosystem services. Basically, the things that we can take from the planet that we think that will always be there for us. Excuse me. If you compare the profits that they make and the cost to society, it's ridiculous, said Peter Peru, ChemSec's communications director. PFAS are a class of about 15,000 chemicals, often used to make products resistant to water, stains, and heat. The chemicals are ubiquitous and linked at low levels of exposure to cancer, thyroid disease, kidney dysfunction, birth defects, autoimmune disease, and other serious health problems. They are called forever chemicals because they do not naturally degrade. The chemicals are thought to be contaminating drinking water for at least 200 million Americans, while watchdogs have identified thousands of industrial polluters. Similar widespread contamination persists throughout Europe. ChemSec found 12 companies account for most of the world's PFAS production and pollution. Among them are 3M, Chemours, Solvay, Daiiki, Honeywell, BASF, Merck, and Bayer. Though 3M this year announced it would discontinue making PFAS in part because of regulatory pressure and litigation. The report grew out of ChemSec's work with investment firms to pressure companies to eliminate PFAS. A letter on the issue circulated late last year and now signed by largely European Union investment firms holding $11 trillion in assets cites recent litigation brought against PFAS manufacturers, ever-increasing regulation that imposes strict limits on the chemicals' use and the compound's public health threat. Investors have raised questions about companies' PFAS production and uses, Perot added, but industry often tries to keep information around the chemicals from public view, as it attempts to evade account or protect trade secrets. There is low transparency and there is so much we don't know, Perot said. While the average market price for PFAS is about $20.75 for each kilogram, the price spikes to about $20,456 for each kilogram when societal costs are factored in. Good God. So there you go. The externalized costs are not factored in. Emoji says environmental lawyers are kind of important. Sure. Isn't that wild? Poppy sent me this yesterday. Concise article cataloging recent climate and weather events and predicted impacts of global warming that are happening fast and strong. Warning signs across the world suggest the situation is already out of control. It's from Dr. Richard Dixon from The Scotsman. Wildfires rage in Canada, heat waves in Europe, Africa, and Asia. Sea ice and glaciers disappearing. The effects of climate change are becoming impossible to ignore. The world's climate scientists recently warned that the predicted impacts of global warming are happening faster and more strongly than previously expected. Tumbling weather records around the world do indeed show climate change accelerating. It's not even mid-May, but we already have a record heat wave in Western Europe and North Africa, with April temperatures in Spain, Portugal, Morocco, and Algeria reaching those expected only in July and August. In Alberta and Canada, there are 108 wildfires burning across 122,000 hectares of land. Countries across Southeast Asia are feeling record heat, including the hottest days ever in Laos, Thailand, and Vietnam, all near the mid-40s Celsius. The amount of sea ice around Antarctica is at a record low, breaking a record only set last year. The long-running drought in eastern Africa continues to affect 20 million people in Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, Uganda, and South Sudan, with more than 2.2 million displaced in Somalia and Ethiopia. Also more likely to occur in the first place. So there's that. With 100,000 glaciers expected to disappear this century, a ghoulish new form of disaster tourism has come about, with people trekking to see the last of the permanent snow on high peaks. Last year, there was the October heat wave in China, with some temperatures more than 20 C higher than normal, and the massive summer floods in Pakistan, estimated to have cost more than $30 billion and affected 33 million people. And things are going to get worse as the regional warming phenomenon known as El Nino gets going. This periodic warming of the waters of the Pacific affects the weather all over the world and is likely to last for several years. It disrupts global weather patterns, leading to more intense storms in some places and droughts in others. One of the biggest impacts is the failure of monsoon rains, leading to disastrous crop failures. The exceptionally strong El Nino of 1876-78 may have caused famines which killed more than 50 million people in Asia, Africa, and South America. The surface of the sea is already hotter than in the record-breaking Super El Nino of 2016. 2016, widely known as one of the hottest years on record and also one of the biggest years for Arctic sea ice melt. Sorry, I can't see that. The surface of the sea is already hotter than in the record-breaking Super El Nino of 2016. Because of this, 2023 could well turn out to be the warmest year ever, beating, you guessed it, 2016. In Indonesia, there are fears of the return of the killer haze of 2016, which saw 100,000 premature deaths across the country, driven by the extra heat and lack of rain resulting from El Nino. The picture in Scotland is more moderate, although February was the second warmest February ever recorded, and we might be on track to have our sixth warmest year ever. Here in Northwest Europe, we are cushioned from the biggest temperature rises because the warming waters of the Gulf Stream are weakening, or Gulf Stream, if you will. The Irish government has just been warned to expect cooler times because of this. The disruption from El Nino may also mean colder winters for a few years for the UK. Because one impact of climate change is canceling out another impact, Scotland is currently among the places least affected anywhere in the world. But the global message as weather records tumble around the world is clear: climate change is out of control. And every country must do more to reduce emissions. That's it. Solved. That's it. We solved it. All right. Let's keep going. Let's look at some good old fossil fuel effery. From David Sirota. Texas Republicans are about to create special courts for their corporate donors, letting Governor Greg Abbott remove judges who deny donors favorable rulings. What? Big Oil is pushing the bill after the Supreme Court allowed climate cases in state courts. I mean, Stephen Donziger has already been prosecuted by a special court convened, under the guidance of a corporation under Exxon. He was basically tried by a corporation and found guilty, Stephen Donziger. So that's justice, right? Big Oil tries to buy its own courts. Texas oil and gas companies could soon have their business cases heard by judges handpicked by a close ally. The state's $200 billion fossil fuel industry has thrown its weight behind legislation that would create a new system of district courts to hear certain disputes involving corporations. While 26 states already have so-called business courts, the Texas proposal has a unique feature. Republican Governor Greg Abbott, who has been bankrolled by fossil fuel donors, by the way, they all are. Okay, so don't get it twisted. It's not Republican. It's not just Republicans who are bankrolled by fossil fuel donors. Democrats, just as much as Republicans. All right. That's why the Democrats aren't doing anything about climate change and doing just about the same or worse than Trump Biden administration on climate change. Anyways, Abbott, who has been bankrolled by fossil fuel donors, would have the power to personally appoint judges who can then serve 2-year terms, a tenure that would let Abbott quickly remove judges if they deny favorable rulings to supporters. The legislation backed by the oil industry comes just after the U.S. Supreme Court allowed climate cases against fossil fuel companies to proceed in state courts. Opponents of the business court plan say that not only would it run afoul of state constitution, which mandates the popular election of district and appellate judges, it would also set a dangerous national precedent, not president, by undermining the independence of the judiciary. Well, we can't have that now, can we? As a result, cases that would otherwise be heard by judges elected by communities in their district could instead be forced into courts controlled by the governor and, by extension, his donors. There you go. What was wasn't a what was his name? Beto O'Rourke was also funded heavily by fossil fuel donations. So pick your side. They're both doing the dirty on you. Okay. Okay. Oh, speaking of which. Speaking of doing the dirty on you, where did it go? Shoot. Hold on one second. I wanted to read this from The Intercept. A massive cache of documents, or cache, could expose the truth about Standing Rock. What? Standing Rock? During Standing Rock, protesters were attacked with dogs, tear gas, and rubber bullets. At one point, they were shot with a water cannon in freezing cold weather, sending people to be treated for hypothermia and other injuries. The Intercept has spent years investigating the violence of Standing Rock, and after a lengthy legal battle with the pipeline's owner, we've won access to a massive new cache of important documents. But analyzing these files is a major effort for our reporting team, and we're counting on the support of our readers to complete the job. Anyways, the documents we've reviewed so far have given our team a disturbing look into the inner workings of Tiger Swan. I mean, a lot of these things are things that people already know, okay? All right. The private security firm hired by pipeline owner Energy Transfer. Founded by an ex-Special Forces operative, these new documents show that Tiger Swan marketed and executed a counterinsurgency strategy using tactics drawn from the War on Terror. Or from COINTELPRO, for Christ's sakes, right? This isn't new. They've been doing this for a long time. Tiger Swan used social media monitoring, aerial surveillance, undercover personnel, and more to build watch lists and dossiers on indigenous activists and environmental organizers. Because climate change is such a hoax, right? That, it's so that fossil fuel companies have to hire, private teams of counterinsurgency personnel and 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 push for special courts so they can try their cases in special courts favorable to them. They have to spend all this money on misinformation, disinformation, propaganda telling you that climate change is a hoax. Because really, it's a hoax, okay? Just so you know. The company then used its experience at Standing Rock, where protesters were beaten, attacked with dogs, and worse, to pitch itself as an industry leader on security to other fossil fuel clients. Again, for the people who are like super woke and clear on that, big pharma is not your friend, or big ag is not your friend, or these particular corporations don't care about you. They're super clear on that. But when it comes to fossil fuels, they're like, yeah, I think they're good. I think we need more of this clean, reliable energy. Anyways, I mean, this kind of stuff that we already knew. And for the record, or for if to jog your memory, if I could, who was president during Standing Rock? Who sat on their hands and did nothing during Standing Rock for let this play out until it got to a fever pitch, and he was like, oh, right, okay, well, we'll halt the pipeline for now. That would be Obama. And going back to the Biden, what the Biden administration is doing for the climate, or doing to the climate. If you're not clear on the fact, that Democrats are just as evil and corrupt as Republicans, they're actually somewhat more evil because they push through things that Republicans can't get past you, right? They do things that would stir the ire of the populace if they were Republicans, but because they're Democrats, nobody seems to notice. Right? Like drop more bombs than George W. Bush, right? Obama and Biden dropped more bombs than George W. Bush during their administration. Dropped so many bombs, they ran out of bombs. Why could they get away with this? Because they were Democrats and everybody was out to brunch, or everybody was like, man, that's my president. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, your president is so awesome and so cool and such a tool of the corporate state. Kicked more people out of homes during their administration. Gave you Romney care. I mean, that administration really messed a lot of people up worldwide and at home. And then people wonder why Trump was elected. Not because he's a great guy, just because people were like, how about somebody else? Right? And so Biden is doing the same thing. Biden's pushing through things that like Trump would be ultra scrutinized for. Biden has got us into a war, another war, right? That, Trump would be ultra scrutinized for, but because it's Biden, yeah, man, let's give him more money. This is a really just cause, and Russia is bad. Bill Clinton passed NAFTA. The list goes on and on. Not saying the Republicans aren't dirty. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying Republicans are nice guys. I'm just saying, when you're playing good cop, bad cop, it's kind of hard to tell who's playing the bad cop. Bush was about quality bombs. You're right. Here's another example. Example J. Let's see. Donziger. Shocking. President Biden in 2022 in 2022 sold weapons to the majority of the world's brutal, autocratic regimes because we are all about democracy and sovereignty and defending democracy. We're so all about it that we're sending a bunch of weapons to the world's autocratic regimes. More than during the Trump years. Oh, I thought we voted out fascism. Wow. And I see like liberals, or I see climate change aware folks, and I see people on the left, all day long on Twitter going like, man, I'm really disappointed in Biden and what he's doing with climate change. This is really a shocker. Really? Is it a shocker? Or did you have misplaced hope? Did you have a misplaced idea that, did somebody just tell you like, well, Trump, he said climate change is a hoax and he's just so terrible and he's the worst ever. You got to vote for Biden. And you're like, oh, yeah, let me do that right away. Yeah. Okay. How's that working out for you? I'm not saying you should vote for Trump. I'm saying you got okey doked again. You got okey doked again. Bush is so bad, we got to vote for Obama. Okey doked. Trump is so bad, we got to vote for Biden. Okey doked. Defense industry profits must not drive foreign policy. Well, too late for that. If they're even going to let me open this article, why do you do it? Why? Biden is selling weapons to the majority of the world's autocracies. Despite the White House's rhetoric about supporting global democracy, the U.S. sold weapons in 2022 to 57% of the world's authoritarian regimes. Yeah. Because you know why we sold it to them? Because they reflect our core values. Our core values. Right? Remember the colonel who was, I think it was a colonel, I don't know, who was questioned on overthrowing democratically elected democracies in Africa in order to install our, U.S.-friendly dictatorships. Why'd you do it? I don't know. We have to look at core values. I mean, clearly our core values are not about democracy or human rights or any of those things. Since the end of the Cold War, the United States has been the world's biggest weapons dealer. Cash money, accounting for about 40% of all arms exports in a given year. Well, if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. You know what I mean? In general, those exports are funded through grants or sales. There are two pathways for the latter category: foreign military sales and direct commercial sales. The U.S. government acts as an intermediate for FMS acquisitions. It buys the material from a company first, then delivers the goods to the foreign recipient. DCS acquisitions are more straightforward. They're a result of an agreement between a U.S. company and a foreign government. Both categories of sales require the government's approval. According to data, a total of 142 countries and territories bought weapons from the U.S. in 2022 for a total of $85 billion in bilateral sales. $85 billion. How many of those countries were, and what's the externality, how are those $85 billion affecting the health, future health of people and environments around the world? What's the externalized cost of those $85 billion in weapon sales in a year, in 1 year? How many of those countries were democracies and how many were autocracies? Of the 84 countries codified as autocracies under the regimes of the world system in 2022, the United States sold weapons to at least 48, or 57% of them. The at least qualifier is necessary because several factors frustrate the accurate tracking of U.S. weapons sales. The State Department's report of commercial arms sales during the fiscal year makes prodigious use of various in its recipients category. Just various. As a result, the specific recipients for nearly $11 billion in weapons sales are not disclosed. Yeah. How's that sound? Does that sound transparent? Does that sound like democracy? Does that sound like, the good guys are doing the good things, representing their core values? All right. Don't forget to vote Democrat. Got to make sure we don't have any fascism running around. All right. Despite the rhetoric, a review of new data suggests instead of a business as usual approach to weapon sales, This is after, Biden said we love democracy or something. The White House's 2022 national security strategy said the most pressing strategic challenge facing our vision is from powers that layer authoritarian governance with a revisionist foreign policy. Despite that rhetoric, a review of the data suggests instead a business as usual approach. Donald Trump based his arms sales policy primarily on economic considerations, corporate interests above all else. In his first foreign trip as president, he traveled to Saudi Arabia and announced a major arms deal with the repressive kingdom. But we had to do him one better. In Biden's first full fiscal year as president, weapon sales from the United States to other countries reached $206 billion, according to the State Department's annual tally. Biden's first year total surpasses the Trump-era high of $192 billion. The multi-billion-dollar effort to train and equip Ukraine doesn't fully explain the dramatic rise in total arms sales last year, let alone to autocracies. Well, there you go. Just making sure, everybody gets. I mean, that's equity, right? We're just trying to be, make our arms sales equitable. We want to make sure everybody gets arms. Even the, some people call them bad. I call them repeat customers. Yay. All right. Let's keep going. Got a couple more minutes left today in this show. Here's, and we're also really upset that China is brokering peace deals around the world. We are really, really mad about that. We're like, why is China creating so much peace? Like peace in the Middle East. They're brokering deals with the, Syria is welcome back into the Arab League. Saudi Arabia and Iran have reached a peace deal. Yemen, they're kind of like, hey, we're not going to do this thing anymore, this like weird proxy war stuff anymore. And a lot of that was brought on, was brokered by China. Crazy, right? What are they doing getting in the way of our imperialist plans and motivations? Democratic, she's a Democrat, Senator Jackie Rosen, Democrat. Autocrat. I mean, Democrat. Future autocrat. Jackie Rosen decries the fact that China is trying to broker troubling agreements to reestablish diplomatic ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia and broker peace deals between Ukraine and Russia. Peace is troubling. Here, let's listen to what she has to say.
China has rapidly increased its engagement around the world. This includes brokering, actually trying to broker troubling agreements between to reestablish diplomatic ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
What are they doing? How dare they reestablish diplomatic ties between Iran
offering to broker peace deals between Ukraine and the Russian aggressors. So these incidents, they highlight China's persistent presence and intention to exert its influence and match the U.S. as a global power. So how can the U.S. address China's increasing involvement in global diplomatic matters? And can we expect to see more countries try to turn to China as a mediator? And what do you think the implications of this pivot would mean to us?
Why is she talking like this? What does it mean to us? And how do we increase our influence? I mean, maybe, are we trying to get people together and have some peace talks? Or are we trying to, how do we win friends and influence people generally? What's the way in which we have been doing that for the last few decades? Is it engaging in proxy wars? Is it starting color revolutions? Is it overthrowing democratically elected governments or attempting to? Is it funding terror squads like Al-Qaeda or ISIS? Is it creating civil wars in countries where there wasn't civil war before? Is that the way that we have influence in these regions? Yeah. I mean, we're not trying to talk about peace. We're not trying to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. We are not trying to do that. In fact, we're trying to encourage them. No, we cannot have the peace. China, get out of here. Hey, we got this, man. We don't need you coming up here and messing up our whole thing here with the peace brokering and the stuff. We are really upset about this. Is that because we're not trying to broker peace? It seems that way. It seems that way. What are we even about if we can't foment hostility everywhere? Lastly, there's a lot of people trying to get in the U.S. I mean, for various reasons. Are these economic refugees, climate change refugees? All of the above. Crowds of people are gathering along the U.S.-Mexican border as Title 42, which allowed border agents to remove migrants on public health grounds during the pandemic, lifts at midnight. I think that was already happened. But Biden is planning on reinstating something that's very similar to Title 42, and they're planning on turning back all these migrants, immediately. They where did I even see they're broadcasting, all over the area. If you are coming here, if you're coming to the U.S. to try to seek, asylum or whatever, we urge you to turn around and go back. Do not come. Even Kamala said that, right? Was it a year or two ago? Do not come. They're basically continuing Trump's border policy, which was, super, super bad and super racist when Trump was president, but, nobody's got anything to say about it now. Same policy, same difference. Obama deported more people than Trump during his reign. Again, just depends on who's in office or the way you want to look at it, but it's pretty much the same policy through the last 3 administrations, and nothing has changed. But again, why are these people coming? What's pushing them this way? Is it the failure of our past policies in the region, in all of these countries? Maybe the failure to allow people to elect socialist, democratically elected socialist-leaning governments that want to help their people, that might want to privatize their own resources and do right by their own people. That has not been allowed. See Venezuela or any other country in the region, which we have sought to control for our corporate friends. Sanctions, yes, Basil Peterson. Yeah, sanctions as well, right? Keeping economies in disarray and tatters so that people can't have access to basic things. I would throw climate change in there somewhere too, because a lot of farmers in many countries are having difficulties growing food because of how things are changing. You know what I didn't know was that this is also happening between France and England. I had no idea. There are a bunch of people camped out in the north of France, waiting to try to sneak onto boats to get to England, to escape, whatever situation that they. What the hell? That is not what I want. That's not what I clicked on. That is so weird. All right, let's try this again. That was super strange. All right. The scale of what's happening in France is vast. Thousands of migrants are camping out in the forests of northern France, waiting to jump in boats and illegally cross the English Channel. Yeah, Tim, climate doesn't even make top 10 for most people, but it's in there. I mean, I had no idea this was happening or going on. So much so, it's such a big deal that, that it's a policy position for both the France and UK. They mend ties. Leaders agree to prevent migrants from crossing the English Channel. They agreed to strengthen military ties between the countries to step up efforts to prevent migrants from crossing the English Channel. Britain agreed to pay France more than 500 million euros over the next 3 years for measures including a detention center for migrants in northern France, a joint command center, and more patrols of the French coastline using drones and an additional 500 French police officers. It's the latest and biggest measure in years of efforts by the two countries to stop thousands of migrants gathering in northern France and then trying to reach the UK. More than 45,000 people arrived in Britain by boat in 2022. That's up from 28,000. So up by about a third. Or 2/3 in 2021, according to the official UK count. The EU's border agency, Frontex, said 5,600 channel crossings by asylum seekers and migrants during the first 2 months of the year. They saw that many crossings, an 82% increase in the same period in 2022. Said the most common countries of origin were Afghanistan, Iraq, and Eritrea. Afghanistan, Iraq, and Eritrea. Afghanistan and Iraq. It's interesting because didn't we destroy those two countries? Didn't the U.S. military? Weren't we in Iraq and Afghanistan for like years and years and years? Weren't we there to help, foster democracy? Weren't we there to, save the people and protect women and do all the things, right? And root out bad guys. And we've so thoroughly destroyed those countries that people are trying to get out now. Awesome. And they're trying to head to the UK, right? I mean, that's an interesting statistic, right? Because you could say that is a direct link between our foreign misadventures and the creation of such hostile living situations that people have to leave and seek asylum in places like the US and the UK. That sounds fairly obvious, right? Anyways, they're like, yeah, we got this, guys. We're going to keep these dirty migrants out of here. What are we going to do with them? I don't know. Maybe you could help them out. Or maybe just stop waging wars around the world, destroying people's countries. Maybe start there? I don't know. All right, guys, that does it for me. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Thanks for hanging out with me every single day on the internets. I'll be back tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Pretty sure I'll be back tomorrow. And I will see all y'all folks. Hope to see all you folks there then. And until next time, peace.